King Leopold II of Belgium ruled from 1865 to 1909, but he's especially notorious for his personal rule over the Congo Free State from 1885 to 1908. Although the Congo was presented as a humanitarian project, Leopold essentially treated it as his private property, exploiting the land and people to extract rubber, ivory, and other resources. His administration of the Congo was brutal. He imposed forced labor and harsh quotas, with punishments like amputations for those who didn't meet them. This led to the deaths of an estimated 10 million Congolese people due to violence, starvation, and disease. The horrific conditions eventually sparked international outrage, leading Belgium to take control of the Congo in 1908, ending Leopold's personal rule. His legacy is deeply controversial, especially as more people have become aware of the atrocities committed under his rule. Many historians and scholars do consider King Leopold II's actions in the Congo to amount to genocide. His rule was marked by extreme brutality and exploitation, with forced labor, violence, and harsh punishments leading to millions of deaths among the Congolese people. This period saw mass suffering through widespread killings, starvation, mutilations, and epidemics, all stemming from his desire to maximize profits from the region's resources, especially rubber. Although the term genocide wasn't coined until after Leopold's time, the sheer scale of human loss and the deliberate, systematic nature of his exploitation have led many to categorize it as such. The atrocities of his reign are now widely recognized as one of the most horrific examples of colonial violence. Under King Leopold II's rule of the Congo Free State, an estimated 10 million Congolese people died. His administration was marked by extreme brutality, forced labor, exploitation of natural resources, and severe punishments, especially in rubber production. This dark period, lasting from the late 1880s to 1908, led to a massive humanitarian crisis, and eventually international outrage forced the Belgian government to take control away from Leopold in 1908. King Leopold II treated the Congo Free State as his personal property rather than a colony belonging to Belgium. He secured the land at the Berlin Conference in 1884 under the guise of bringing civilization and ending the slave trade. But his true aim was personal profit. He exploited Congo's vast natural resources, mainly rubber and ivory, and set up a system where brutal quotas and forced labor were imposed on the Congolese people to maximize his wealth. This personal ownership allowed him to operate outside standard colonial oversight, enabling him to carry out widespread abuses largely unchecked until international pressure finally forced Belgium to take control of the Congo in 1908. After international outrage over the atrocities in the Congo, Leopold II was forced to cede control of the Congo Free State to the Belgian government in 1908. The Belgian parliament took over the territory, renaming it the Belgian Congo. Leopold was never prosecuted for his actions, and he remained the King of Belgium until his death in 1909. Despite the massive human suffering during his reign in the Congo, Leopold was largely protected from accountability during his lifetime. He died just a year after he lost control of the Congo, and his legacy remains deeply controversial due to the exploitation and genocide that occurred under his rule. The Berlin Conference, held from 1884 to 1885, was a meeting of European powers to divide Africa among themselves without considering the indigenous peoples or the existing nations. Leopold II used this opportunity to secure control over the Congo, claiming it as his own private domain, which became known as the Congo Free State. Although the conference's official goal was to regulate European colonization and trade in Africa, Leopold's acquisition of the Congo was done under the pretense of humanitarian efforts, like ending the slave trade and bringing civilization to the region. However, as we know, his reign was marked by brutal exploitation and atrocities that caused the deaths of millions of Congolese people. Reparations were never officially given to the Congolese people for the atrocities committed under King Leopold II's rule. While the Belgian government took control of the Congo in 1908 and ended Leopold's personal rule, the damage done during that time was immense. The Belgian state did not offer reparations or an official apology for the genocide and exploitation until much later. It wasn't until the 21st century that Belgium began to publicly confront its colonial history. In 2020, King Philippe of Belgium expressed regret for the country's colonial past, including the crimes committed during Leopold's rule. However, this was not a formal apology, and no reparations were provided to the Congolese people. The conversation about reparations remains a contentious issue, with some advocating for Belgium to take further responsibility for the long-lasting impact of colonialism. The Congolese people continue to face many challenges today, despite some progress in certain areas. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, once the Belgian Congo, is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world, but has struggled with political instability, corruption, armed conflict, and widespread poverty. The legacy of colonialism, especially the brutal exploitation under King Leopold II, still has lasting effects on the country's development. The DRC has been plagued by armed conflict for decades, particularly in the eastern regions, where militias and rebel groups fight for control over resources like minerals, which are crucial to the global economy. These conflicts have led to millions of deaths, displacement, and ongoing human rights violations. Economically, the country remains one of the poorest in the world despite its mineral wealth. Many Congolese live in poverty, and access to healthcare, education, and infrastructure is limited, particularly in rural areas. However, there are ongoing efforts for development, including foreign aid, investment in infrastructure, and initiatives to strengthen the country's government and institutions. The DRC has made strides in democratic processes, with elections held regularly, though these are often marred by controversy and challenges related to fairness and transparency. The country is slowly rebuilding, but the path to stability and prosperity remains difficult. The Congolese people, however, are resilient, and many work tirelessly for a better future despite the ongoing hardships. Belgium is no longer directly exploiting the Congo in the way it did during the colonial era, but the legacy of exploitation is still felt, and some economic practices continue to raise concerns. After Belgium took control of the Congo from King Leopold II in 1908, it remained a Belgian colony until the country gained independence in 1960. Since then, Belgium has no longer had direct political control, but Belgian companies have been involved in the extraction of Congo's natural resources, especially minerals like cobalt, copper, and diamonds, which are vital to global industries. While Belgium itself isn't directly exploiting the Congo anymore, some Belgian companies, along with international corporations, still benefit from the country's mineral wealth, sometimes under conditions that can be exploitative. There are ongoing concerns about labor practices, human rights violations, and environmental damage related to the mining sector in the DRC. Many of the people involved in mining work in dangerous and poorly paid conditions, and the profits often flow out of the country rather than contributing to local development. Moreover, there are still debates around whether Belgium should take further responsibility for its colonial past, including through reparations, a fuller acknowledgement of its role in the Congo's history, and support for development efforts in the country. The economic ties between Belgium and the DRC remain strong, but it's a complex relationship marked by both historical responsibility and modern economic interests. The current president of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, is Felix Tshisekedi. He has been in office since January 2019, after winning the presidential election held in December 2018. Tshisekedi is the son of Etienne Tshisekedi, a prominent opposition leader in the DRC. His presidency marked a significant moment in the country's history, as it was the first peaceful transfer of power since the DRC's independence from Belgium in 1960. However, his time in office has been marked by challenges such as political tension, armed conflict, and economic difficulties, especially in the eastern regions of the country. The Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, is officially a democracy, but in practice, it faces significant challenges in terms of political stability, governance, and rule of law. The DRC holds regular elections, including presidential and parliamentary elections. But these elections have often been marred by controversy, allegations of fraud, and concerns over fairness and transparency. For example, the 2018 presidential election, which led to Felix Tshisekedi's victory, faced accusations of vote manipulation and irregularities, though it was hailed as a peaceful transfer of power after decades of unrest. Despite its democratic framework, the DRC struggles with weak institutions, corruption, and political repression. The country's vast size and diverse population, coupled with ongoing armed conflicts in certain regions, make it difficult to establish strong governance throughout the entire country. While there have been some positive steps toward democracy and peace, such as Tshisekedi's peaceful assumption of power, the DRC still faces major obstacles like armed militias, human rights abuses, and economic inequality, which hinder the full realization of democracy. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, the president serves a term of 5 years. However, a president can serve a maximum of 2 consecutive terms. Felix Tshisekedi, for example, was elected in 2018, but political stability and challenges related to election processes often affect the timing and outcome of elections in the country. Cobalt is a key metal used in several industries, with its primary applications being in electronics, energy storage, and manufacturing. The most significant uses of cobalt include: 1. Batteries. Cobalt is a crucial component in lithium-ion batteries, which power everything from smartphones and laptops to electric vehicles. It helps improve the energy density and longevity of these batteries. 2. Aerospace and defense. Cobalt is used in the production of high-performance alloys that can withstand extreme temperatures, making it valuable in jet engines, turbines, and other aerospace applications. 3. Magnetic materials. Cobalt is used in the creation of strong magnets, which are vital for electric motors, wind turbines, and hard drives. 4. Catalysts. It is used in the petrochemical industry as a catalyst in the refining of oil, as well as in the production of certain chemicals. 5. Medical applications. Cobalt is also used in medical treatments, particularly in radiotherapy for cancer, and in the manufacture of certain medical implants like hip replacements due to its strength and durability. Given its importance in modern technologies, cobalt is considered a critical material, and much of it is mined in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, which has raised ethical concerns over labor practices and environmental impacts. The low wages paid to workers in cobalt mining, particularly in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, despite the high value of cobalt, is a result of several factors tied to both local and global systems. Here are some reasons why this happens. 1. Poor working conditions. Many cobalt miners, especially in artisanal mining, work in dangerous, unregulated conditions. These workers often have to deal with exposure to toxic materials, lack of proper safety gear, and the risk of collapse in unstable mines. Despite the risks, they are paid very little because the mining industry in the DRC is largely informal, with little oversight or regulation. 2. Global supply chain issues. Cobalt is in high demand because of its role in lithium-ion batteries, but much of the production happens at the bottom of the supply chain, where profits are concentrated among foreign companies and middlemen. The miners themselves rarely see the full value of the cobalt they extract. Instead, they are paid a small fraction of the final price due to the complex, profit-driven supply chains involving multinational companies. 3. Corruption and lack of regulation. In many cases, the DRC's mining sector is plagued by corruption and lack of proper regulation. The government struggles to enforce laws that could ensure better wages and conditions for miners. This allows companies to exploit cheap labor while bypassing regulations that could improve workers' rights. 4. Market forces. The price of cobalt is also influenced by market forces, and while it's a critical material, its price can fluctuate depending on supply and demand. In some cases, the market doesn't necessarily reflect the true value of cobalt when workers are paid so little, because the extraction process is often done in such a way that miners don't see the benefits of those price increases. 5. Artisanal versus industrial mining. The majority of cobalt in the DRC comes from artisanal mining, where workers often use rudimentary tools and lack access to modern mining equipment. These small-scale operations typically have fewer protections, and miners can be paid as little as a few dollars a day, which is far below the value of the resource being extracted. Despite the high value of cobalt on the global market, the people extracting it often remain in poverty because of these systemic issues. And improving the situation will require both local and international efforts to address working conditions, labor rights, and fair trade practices. Unfortunately, the people in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC, continue to face significant exploitation, especially in the mining sector. While the country is rich in valuable resources like cobalt, copper, and gold, the wealth generated from these minerals doesn't translate into prosperity for many Congolese people. Instead, the system remains deeply exploitative, with both local and international factors contributing to this ongoing issue. Many workers, especially in artisanal and small-scale mining, endure dangerous conditions, long hours, and low wages. This exploitation is driven by a combination of weak governance, corruption, and the global demand for resources that benefits multinational companies while leaving local communities with little to no financial gain. Moreover, the mining areas are often controlled by armed groups or corrupt officials, which further complicates efforts to improve working conditions or ensure fair wages. The people working in these mines often face human rights abuses, and the lack of regulations or enforcement means that they receive minimal protection from exploitation. While international organizations and some companies have made efforts to address these issues through ethical sourcing initiatives and better supply chain transparency, real change requires a more substantial overhaul of both local governance and global trade practices. The Congolese people remain caught in a cycle of poverty despite the immense wealth extracted from their land. Addressing the exploitation of the Congolese people in the mining sector, particularly in cobalt extraction, requires a multifaceted approach that tackles both local and global issues. Here are some potential steps to remedy the situation. 1. Improving governance and accountability. Strengthening the rule of law in the DRC is crucial. This means improving governance, tackling corruption, and enforcing labor laws that protect workers' rights. The government must hold companies and individuals accountable for exploiting workers, and it should ensure that the wealth generated from resources is used to improve the country's infrastructure, healthcare, and education. 2. Supporting fair trade and ethical mining practices. There is a growing push for companies to source minerals ethically, ensuring that the workers who extract cobalt are paid fairly and work in safe conditions. Global corporations that rely on Congo's minerals, such as those in the electronics and electric vehicle industries, should commit to transparency in their supply chains. By investing in fair trade initiatives, companies can help ensure that profits are more equitably shared with local workers. 3. Empowering local communities. Local communities need more support to gain control over their own resources. This could involve initiatives that help communities form cooperatives or organizations that can negotiate better wages and working conditions, and provide training and education in sustainable mining practices. Empowering local communities can help reduce dependence on exploitative middlemen and companies. 4. Corporate social responsibility, CSR. International companies that profit from Congo's resources must take responsibility for the impact of their operations on local populations. By adopting strong CSR policies, companies can contribute to infrastructure development, worker welfare, and environmental protection. This would require companies to invest in local communities, ensure workers are paid fair wages, and prevent harmful labor practices. 5. Improving worker safety. Many artisanal miners work in unsafe conditions, often using rudimentary tools without proper safety measures. Governments, NGOs, and companies should work together to improve working conditions, provide training, and ensure that miners have access to safety equipment. Encouraging the use of more sustainable, safer mining techniques would help reduce the physical risks to workers. 6. International advocacy and pressure. Global civil society, including NGOs, human rights organizations, and consumers, must continue to pressure companies and governments to do better. Advocacy can raise awareness of human rights abuses, push for legislation that holds companies accountable, and encourage consumer choices that favor ethically sourced products. 7. Diversification of the Congolese economy. The DRC is heavily dependent on its mineral wealth, but the economy needs to diversify to reduce its reliance on a single resource. Investments in other sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and technology could provide more sustainable sources of income for the population and reduce the economic pressure that drives exploitation in the mining sector. 8. Reparations and support for long-term development. While reparations might be a complicated issue, there should be a focus on long-term support for the Congolese people to undo the damage done by colonial exploitation. This could take the form of international aid, debt relief, or investments in education, healthcare, and infrastructure to improve the quality of life for the Congolese population. Ultimately, ending the exploitation of the Congolese people requires a combination of systemic changes, international cooperation, and grassroots movements to ensure that both the DRC's resources and its people are treated with fairness and respect. The global demand for resources like cobalt must be matched by an equally strong commitment to human rights and ethical practices. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more content, and leave a comment below. See you next time.